Article is a self-reported false confessions and false guilty pleas among offenders with mental illness topic by Allison Redlick et al. It was published in July of 2009. Confessions are the admission of guilt for a crime in which the suspect was not responsible for. False guilty pleas are pleading guilty to a crime which the suspect was not responsible for with the intention of receiving a lesser sentence from the court. As discussed this week, there are coercive interrogation tactics which may influence an individual to elicit a confession. There are psychological vulnerabilities that can put innocent suspects at risk. For this article specifically, it does talk about the mental health illnesses and how the symptomology included in those may influence an individual to give a confession. Research has assessed the way that false confessions can impact individuals. However, false guilty pleas is not as researched at this time. For false confessions, there was a study conducted in Europe where 25,000 juveniles were surveyed in a self-reporting method. 14% of participants did admit that they had given a false confession at one point. Are offenders with mental illnesses more likely to provide false confessions and false guilty pleas? So to consider the research question at hand, one has to be familiar with what this population does look like. So offenders with serious mental health illnesses are a population that are at risk for wrongful convictions due to the psychologically manipulative police interrogation tactics, a complex legal system, and the vulnerabilities that mental disorders do give to individuals due to symptomology and just overall thinking methods. It was noted that these individuals with mental illnesses are associated with repeating cycling through the criminal justice system as well. 1,249 participants from 6 U.S. sites were interviewed. Participants were also individuals with mental illnesses who were involved in the criminal justice system. 86% had known serious mental disorders such as schizoaffective or bipolar. 7% had another mental disorder such as social anxiety or ADD. And 7% had an unidentified mental disorder, meaning that while they did identify that they had mental health struggles, their diagnosis was not given to the research team. Participants were asked the same questions. So number 1 being, did you ever confess to the police that you did a crime when you did not really do the crime? And 2, did you ever plead guilty to a crime you did not commit? If yes was answered to either question, they were asked how many times they had confessed or pleaded guilty, the most serious crime in which they had falsely confessed or admitted guilt to, and why did they falsely confess or admit guilt. Participants were also asked to report the number of times which they had been arrested and their most serious lifetime arrest. There were 2 assessments used, the ITAC and the CSI, to assess each participant as far as their attitudes and knowledge of treatment, as well as their symptoms for their mental health illnesses. All data collected from the study was consistent. There were trained interviewers that did conduct all of the interviews with the participants. They were conducted in various locations such as county jail, courthouse, and community. The table below consists of the results of this study. I will be referring to this as I move forward. False confession rates ranged from 9 to 28% based on the location. 274 individuals, 22%, self-reported false confessions, and false guilty pleas did range from 27 to 41% based on the location. 453 individuals, so 36.5%, self-reported false guilty pleas. Significant correlation between false confessions and false guilty pleas. 84% of participants who had self-reported false confessions also self-reported false guilty pleas, and 49% of participants who had reported false guilty pleas also reported false confessions. The study did provide data that suggests that false confession rates were higher than previous research. It also assessed that individuals who spend years in and out of the criminal justice system are at higher risk for false confessions and false guilty pleas. It can be used to bring awareness to lifetime criminal justice involvement and how it influences higher rates of confessions and guilty pleas. It also considers the ways in which mental health systems can affect the confession and plea process. False confessions and false guilty pleas are more frequent than previously thought. Therefore, it is important to consider ways in which we as a population can prevent these things from happening. There are some ideas such as using more assessments before interrogation to assess the mental wellness and vulnerability of a participant prior to interrogating them. Additionally, there does need to be more research done about false guilty pleas.